Do you want to come up the front? Yeah. Sure. So, Tribal Abduction has been a very impactful work. It's had a tremendous conversation starter all opening weekend, and it's just wonderful that Harold's here. There's nothing quite like hearing artists talk about their work. It gives you insights that you will never get any other way, so thank you, Harold, for being here.
Thank you.
No worries. So, mate, look, if the last couple of weeks has taught us anything, it's in the news and in the media, you know, it's the reminder of the power of images.
Yeah.
We can hear about things, we can know about things from our history and know about things that are going on behind closed doors, but the power of images and what they can do and how they can influence and motivate us. And it seems very much that that this very powerful image has had a real impact on people.
And had an impact on me. The thing with stuff like this, and it's, as an artist that's been, let's say, escaping his responsibility by painting landscapes and water lilies and wildlife, you know, you get soft and you're not honest to yourself. And I felt that for some time regarding the true art that I wanted to do. When I went to art school, we learned a lot about figurative paintings, and we learned a lot about the history of art throughout Europe, and even going back to Mesopotamian art. But European art has always been part of my journey as an artist, because I went to art school, and it was all European. That was it. So it hasn't replaced my Aboriginal connection, all that family stuff. That remains solid and unbreakable. But I wasn't aware that I had a reasonable skill at drawing, which is the basic benchmark of any good figurative artist. If you're an abstract painter, well, if you want to paint like Olsen or you want to paint like Fairweather in Australia, that's fine. But if you want to paint this stuff, it's business. I mean business, because you've got to understand the human form and know it well. As we know, the Sistine Chapel and Michelangelo, all that stuff, the human body and form is a way to portray our thoughts and feelings better than possibly landscapes and painting birds. So, yeah, this painting has arrived into my heart about 2 years ago. But before I want to say anything about the title of this, I was going to call it Lorna. Yeah, we know Lorna, it's alright. We know Lorna, they're part of the court case of the stolen generation, Lorna Cadillo and Peter Gunner. Because I was a chairperson of that sort of institution, and one of the famous leaders of that is Barbara Cameron, she's here. So I recommend when I had an issue about the name, because you paint with that personal feeling and you want to connect to some person. Even though Lorna was the title I thought of, even though it was about my parents. Both my parents were removed from the bush in a traditional environment. It's an awkward word to say, because this painting is a traditional type of European art, so words are confusing sometimes. So I had to get back to another title to this to give more, to evoke the painting. Tribal abduction, so that's distinct. So, and that relates to the removal of a child by the police and taken by the Christian institution to be cleansed. That's the kind of thought that was going on. But central to this, I had to start off was this image here and that image there. These other figures came after, but I had to have a reaction to being taken, was to put the father, who had I didn't want to put in there. I had an axe, I had all sorts of things through my mind to show violence in retaliation. But a small thing, they're very subliminal, but it has a lot of meaning. That all we've got is a rock to defend himself or his daughter. So that's what happened with that. But that's the main picture of this is this 4 groups of people and this child. I was just asked, who was this person that he was reflecting on? Well, because it's in the desert, the features are a little bit different to the top end Aboriginal. You know, the colouring is different. So they have this brown and the yellow hair, which is indicative of my mother people, with the fair hair. So these things you've got to get right if you're in a place of the desert. You've got to do the right thing and respect the place. So you get the right people. It's not being discriminatory, it's just doing it right. All these things of mother, my health, myself, over the last 2 years, let's say last 18 months at least, was drawing. I didn't even pick up a paintbrush. I didn't even do a watercolour. I didn't do anything. This is how you operate to do these things that are what the romantics and the realists of the 19th century did. You just have to get it right at the beginning and sculpture the figures. In drawing, they're small drawings and they get larger, and the last big drawing was half the sheet of everything in detail, in drawing only. This is what you do. So as I went along, I had to put the mother in that position, but I was wanting to have this young fellow here who gestures to say, what the hell's going on? What are you doing to my family? And that boy is disempowered, and all he can do is cry. The daughter here is just grabbing hold of his mother in its own little soft way. It can't do anything. You have a relative of a angry youth who can pick up a fire stick and defend him. What would happen after, who knows? And just a sculptural figure, what I wanted to have in it for that reason is sculptural. Sort of, I love the sculptures of Michelangelo and all those people, even Rodin. It was that sort of love of the body, the back, and the child. And this is a prostrate woman that's collapsed. But this figure here is a lady that's running, fleeing away in a manner that you're not taking my child, you may take someone else's, but you're not taking mine. So she's running away. And of course the grandmother, who's just far removed from anything that's totally in that traditional thought environment, what is going on. And you see this lady dressed in black, the purification of the baby's napkin, or what was Christ put in? Swaddling. Yeah, swaddling. It's that sort of stuff which connects to this child here. This child is neither male or female. It's done that way so people can relate it differently. It's about, if I were to say it was a male, which connects to that, his culture has circumcision long before Christ, and it's pure and beautiful, or for this land. This represents Christ, who was circumcised only 2,000 years ago. So what's this imposition to make this person, feel inadequate? And they've done the right thing from the beginning, under our culture. So that's a nice twist to the story. Someone has said to me, it's more religious, and I said, I'll explain that. That's part of all this. But these things come out after, that your subconscious or your consciousness organises this painting, and therefore you can speak about it. And this lady here is, well, it's kind of a filler. When you do paintings, you want to do things that connect everything. If you look at some of those Caravaggios, there's a black space, but it's too black on one side of the picture. So you put a body in to make it connect. And the eye, the movement of the eye goes into the picture, and they all point to her. But it is dark, and the child is dark. that child will never be removed. That child will. So and it's all going backwards and forwards about this story. And I didn't have to put stolen generation because that limits the story politically of the Northern Territory. This happened all over Australia for a long period of time. It happened in New South Wales, John years, removing people from their place. It affects the children. And when you remove a child, you fracture its culture. You fracture its culture genocide. That's it. Lost its language. My mother lost her language in part, but she's able to become fluent in 2 more languages, which she connected with her mother. Make things look beautiful, which it is, that we seen the other night, but they haven't got it. But that's another story about the Aboriginal flag. Basically, this is how I did the painting, but because I'm a landscape painter, it was just too easy to do the landscape. I think it only took about a couple of hours to paint it, get it right, but all this took hours and hours. Yeah, it's sort of the desert I love. It's similar to the country of my mother. It's out towards Marini. When I drove out there was some land council meeting, and I took some photos. It was that line that I loved, and it was one little hill of that colour. So that's my grandmother's country, the Luritja people out there. Any questions?
I've got lots, and I'm sure everyone else here does as well, but I'll just pick up on something and then we can throw it open to the audience if you'd like. But you said something almost straight away about you shirking your responsibility.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what that responsibility is?
Well, you go to art school to achieve your aims of being an artist, a true artist in the true sense. I mean, I said in the paper, you're an artist or you're a political artist. That's a bit coarse, but I've always drawn all my life, but it was always drawings of small sketches, and I'd lock it away, throw it away, put it back in the way, cover and all that. But while I was at the museum in 1970, I couldn't help myself. That I just left art school at 69, so I got a job in there, and I was a draftsman. And before me were all these photos of countrymen from the north, south, east, west, but mainly of the desert. So I did a lot of that stuff, so that I felt good with myself that I didn't lose it. And now with me today, I've got quite a few drawings of countrymen from the bush who are so-called traditional in the true sense, photographed by anthropologists like Tyndale and Spencer and Gillen, you know, all that stuff. That's in their archives everywhere. I did a lot of Aboriginal studies, figures, the whole lot. And that's with me, but your artwork suffers when you have to work. You have a family, you've got to go and do the job of making an income. So you have to put these things aside, because you can't get up and sell a painting in the middle of Adelaide and you've got Aboriginal figures on your easel. No one will want to buy it, so you have to work. So the responsibility myself was that I left it so long that it was harming myself, it was really harming my watercolour. I got sick to death of it, absolutely. Because people would ring up would have a landscape with 5 goose and 10 water lilies and a cloud and 2 paper barks and bandanas and the wind blowing to the left. Yes, madam. And I say, I don't have it. But I didn't have one. I said, I'll have it tomorrow for you. I've got it on file there somewhere. Right, get one done. It was terrible. Yeah. But this story, it really connects to the job I had with a stolen generation. And I haven't seen any significant artwork that can tell that story. So literally, you can do abstract and write words and be literal about it, but to paint it this way, it's never been. I haven't seen anything. The closest thing where art has a political connotation is Arthur Boyd's the Half-Caste Bride. You know that picture? That's the only thing. But what? It doesn't conjure up the whole story of things. So after my time with the Stolen Generation, still went painting, but I brought this onto my table and started to go through my drawings that were there, and then I activated it for the last 5 years or more. And I said I would prepare something for the Telstra Awards. I'm too late to get this done properly, so I started to get into this. And true to myself. I hope I've succeeded. Have I?
You obviously have. You obviously have. I think perhaps we've arrived at, whether it's the picture or the start of the conversation, we've arrived at an image that we can all gather around and talk about, and there's some wonderful photos on social media of 3 young girls standing in front of the painting and pointing and talking, and I would have loved to have eavesdropped on that conversation to see what was had, and I think that is going to be the legacy of the painting, is the conversation that this painting starts, and that we can have as adults, potentially with children, and the educational value and the things that this painting can potentially start.
Well, that's what art's supposed to do. And art he does his job, or the pianist and writer of music do their job, and it moves on. It has its own life. If it's worthy, that life continues for some period of time. It does open up a lot of stuff, what I've said. And if someone had asked me, what do you want us to see in this painting? I said, you see whatever you want. Whatever you want. That's all. And if you get a snippet of it, or one lady said to me, it's not frightening. What's the word? She said some word that I was surprised, but that's the whole point of it. If you have a word that's got angst and it's like anger, well, that's fine. That's what it has to stand up to it. Painting has to stand up to the criticism. That's, if you can understand, they have to, because that endures it, you see. Like, if you look at all those Caravaggios, he was dismissed for a few hundred years until he came to the fore later, because someone found him that he had something to say. Now, if you look at all of his artwork, you can criticise it if you like. It was weird and strange. He was kind of homophobic, and he was a bad boy. But his artwork overcame that. His life is irrelevant. It's what he created. So my life's irrelevant. In the end, it's the painting. Painting has to endure the criticism, like the flag.
Well, just to counter that, I don't think your life is irrelevant. I think you're a national living treasure, and why everybody doesn't know Harold Thomas's name as the person attached to the Aboriginal flag, which is a great symbol of the Indigenous nation, but it's slowly, I mean, a number of people have said to you over the last few days, it should be our flag. Now, you've got all sorts of responses to that.
Jermaine Greer said that, and I said, ooh. I'm a fan of hers. The point is, there are some things that sacrosanct. Sacrosanct, it belongs to Aboriginal people. I don't have that power. It was not in me to confuse my people. It does the job, and it exists for a very good reason. And I've explained it once before. I decided last night that it was done for introspection. It wasn't a reaction because of an invasion or colonial stuff. It was about introspection, being proud of your identity and culture. That's why the red of the flag is about the earth and our appreciation of the place where we live. Not blood. It's bigger than that. It means about our Aboriginal people love of their country. That's as simple as that. And it's shared. We saw it last night. It's shared. We made a lot of music about it. We share it. And we like to do this exhibition. One journalist asked a question, and he was sort of probing for some sort of heavy reaction. He said, why should Aboriginals have their own art exhibition? Oh. But I reacted and say, well, per capita, there's more Aboriginal artists than Western people in the whole of the country, per capita, right? Per capita. And sometimes we like to get together to be with ourselves. Some other people reacted really hard on that. I said, well, you should have named him properly. But I've been interviewed and I respect his question. But I've always had an issue about that kind of thing, because I was a mainstream artist and I had to tough it out in the mainstream to sell my art. And I said, oh, how come you don't do dot paintings? I'm an urban black, you might as well say. The word we use down south is an urban black, that's it. There was no in between, no half caste or coloured language. The press said you're black activist, so that sort of thing is relevant to a person's identity. And often we like to be in a situation like this, where we feel comfortable. There are places where, if you say that are exclusive white, where Aboriginal will never go, you know them, I know they're out there, but no one discusses it. It's that Australian thing about keeping things to themselves. So we like some things that belong to us because of this place here. And another thing, I still keep coming back to a museum. I left it in 1971. Yeah. Yeah. But they're useful institutions because it's for everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I hope this institution's useful.
Well, yeah, well, put it this way. If you look at it in this context, there's three institutions Aboriginals have created for themselves. It's the Aboriginal flag, it's the medical service and the legal service, right? They are fixed. They're embedded into the society. They're embedded in the psychology of Aboriginal struggle, and they'll never disappear. And if you ask the other question, when white people made institutions like us, DIA, ADC, ATSIC, Congress, and they've got another institution where Aboriginal, they've all failed. They've all failed. You tell me one that a kind of collaborative thing with Aboriginals, and it's not controlled by whites, and since Goffin, they've all failed. See? But they can only get legislation for land rights, legislation for native title. That's a different situation about legality, but ownership of an institution we've created and they still exist. But I can give due respect to this place. When they first started the Aboriginal Art Award, it's lasted 33 years. It's the longest institution that's created by a white environment that's lasted.
And you went in the very
and
first
I say,
award.
thank you. Well, it's a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's the way it should be. There are some things, they get it right.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with art and craft, nationally, it's worked. Yeah, and some beautiful artists come through here. Wonderful artists. Pity Yerawalla didn't live long enough to go through this. Because I think he's the greatest artist of all. Yerawalla.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to throw open, if you're happy, Harold, to a few questions from the audience. Has anyone got a question that they'd like to ask? Tom?
Quickly, I did art school here in Darwin. There was an apocryphal story by our art history lecturer about an American, African-American painter who did these huge canvases about the Ku Klux Klan and showed the killings and stuff like that. Massive paintings, and they went on display. And he was dismayed to find that the Ku Klux Klan actually bought them because they interpreted it as they bought it because they thought, it's great. They didn't interpret it as a criticism or of the actions.
Yeah.
So the control of meaning in a work like that can be a bit slippery, can't it?
Yes, I understand that. But the reason why, obviously, he knew the consequences, that chap. If he painted Ku Klux Klan and everything like that, he knew the consequences. It'd be either negative or positive, but mostly negative, right? Majority would say, you're having a conversation, won't say, about this evil thing that's been in our midst in America for 200 or 300 years. Some will buy it, of course. That's the way it will go. And what can you do? Should he have painted in the first place? I don't know.
Well, I think it's more about being it's an ironic thing about trying to control meaning of art.
Yeah, well, it works for different reasons. But if you paint like this is not about controlling anything. This is just it's only a painting. I've got an idea and I'll paint it. That's all. And I'll walk away and we go on to the next one. But because of the nature of it and the story of it, it does something to a lot of people. I wasn't expecting that it would get this let's say, respect, because I was hoping I'd just have it hung and sit somewhere else, people walk past it, okay. But you've got to set the stage, so it changes the whole thing about the painting. You see, if it's sat over there, like these other paintings, which probably people are not looking carefully at, one painting takes over, so you forgot about the other paintings. I thought it would be in that category. But when it takes centre, then there's the whole meaning swirls around with people about it's about, it's trouble. It's about removing this child. Then you can just go for it. You can't fake a situation, and you can't make it ideal. How do you make an ideal picture that satisfies myself, to satisfy child generation people, or people who have been removed, or people who have been detained, or children who have been incarcerated, in which comes out of all this picture? It doesn't happen. It's the nature of it. You get up in the morning, there are different things that are mulling in your brain, and should I put this hand up or that hand, or I was going to have that little girl there. You just go, then over a period of time, it just falls into place. Paintings are like that. It's a lot of paintings are by accident. It just happens that way. It's like when I do my watercolours. I do these colours and I let it run, and I like that colour. Oh no, I don't like it. You let things happen. Artists have to do that. They have that instinct to take itself. If you tighten it all up, like early century European art, it was so stiff, and it used small brushes and washes and things. Early Flemish art and all that. Boring as hell. This is crap. That's why the 19th century and the art came along, and the Impressionists came along to liberate art itself, but liberate people to enjoy different expressions of art, which given it to music and furniture like the Bauhaus. It just goes on. Even though I'm going back in time, but this is a time more recent for me. There's the only way I could do it. I couldn't do it abstract. I couldn't do a watercolour of it. You just had to do it this way, right? And it's come this way for the right reasons, not to tell people, oh, you must understand. I don't care a jack if people don't understand my painting. It doesn't bother me. But fortunately, it's happening, and I'm learning. There are certain things in this figure that I made a mistake. That's why I said I'm to the next one, and hopefully it will be better. It's in the paper. I'm quoting myself, Yeah. So I understand that point that you can do a painting that's so dreadful and defiant, that's so jingoistic and all that stuff about race and ugly stuff. There are always artists like that, because he knew he'd sell it. He knew he would sell it. I didn't know I was going to sell this painting. I was going to put it on my back and take it back home to Humpty Doo. And do another one. Oh,
Harold
Charlie.
William, Congratulations on it.
Thanks.
A magnificent painting. Most Aboriginal people look at that and see themselves in. I mean, I can see my mother there, my grandmother, their country.
Yes.
It's a powerful image, there's no doubt. I wonder whether you think of the images that you're seeing now coming out of our detention centres.
Yes.
And that's 100 years on from there, that's an extension on
Yes.
it. And whether you see that there's a painting there that you will do, another image that you will take from that.
The thing is, you can't eclipse this and try and retell a story, but what you're saying is true. I did speak about the removal of children. That's the bottom line. No matter colour or what predicament they're in, it's like our detention centres for children or refugees. Abhorrent. No Aboriginal would ever say that's a good place to have them there, because we've been institutionalised on these institutions throughout the Northern Territory or Palm Island or whatever, all everywhere. And it's a bad thing. It's just no good for Aboriginal people to want to have that all the time. But for the government to allow that, it kind of that hits that. This child represents that kind of frustration. That will you get it right? You haven't, because of Dundalk. You haven't got it right. It just that can come out of the story if you like. That's what we're talking about. That there's an expression that goes further than the picture. I can't do that. It's just one of these fortunate things in a painting that what the judges said, it ticked all the boxes. I wondered what he meant by ticking all the boxes. I didn't want to tick all the boxes. I wanted to be the opposite. But because people are expecting a kind of expression of the stolen generation in another way. I don't know what it was. Because we write a lot about it. There's a lot of books about removal. And I didn't want to use the word stolen generation for the very reason there's a bigger picture than what we are conditioned to in the Northern Territory. It's a bigger picture about all people, particularly mothers. There's court custody cases, who owns the child? It's the same thing. The child will be fractured because it'll lose his father's presence. It may be a good father, but this is what it's all about. You can't isolate and say it's only Aboriginals are feeling this loss of what happens in a family situation. But this is great in the sense that, you know, I'm on my own land and I've got all my great culture that's behind me. It connects quickly to that. But I hope that I got from this painting that people connect it in all different ways. As I've learnt as I've come here. There's a lot of stuff I've learned what people are talking about. I think, okay. Yeah.
Any other questions?
How do you feel about the, is this gratifying for you as an artist in the Territory? It's a hard road to hoe. How gratifying is it to be recognised for this painting?
Oh yes, it's just extraordinary. I mean, it's my first painting like this. My first painting here in 1933, well, as I said, was a painting that size of LC. Did I say 1930? 1983. 1983, isn't it?
84.
That was 83.
84.
You sure? Yeah. All right. Okay. Was a painting this size, just realistic paperbarks. That's all. It's brown and monochromatic and light and all that. I just love that picture. The Land Council bought that. It's somewhere in the archives of the Northern Land Council. But back then, that's what I did. I thought, oh, we'll do a painting to respect this institution that they want to recognise Aboriginal artists. So I did what I would normally do. It's a oil landscape. Got it. I got second, which is wonderful. It's $500 back then. It was a lot of money, I think. Oh, it was. But the fellow who won it was Nelson Jagamar or Michael?
Michael Nelson Jagamar.
Yeah, Nelson Jagamar. Yeah. And great artist. You know where his stuff is? He's outside the Parliament House in Canberra. All that terrazzo, that's his design. So famous person. That was after he won and all that. So when I looked at the painting, it was called Unity. I have to say the story, it's public now. And it was a beautiful sort of, quite a large painting, and had sort of grey monotones with a little blue and the circles and dots and all that. It's just a lovely picture. It's a painting. Some paintings are repetitious of graphic design of Aboriginal culture, dots and all that. But it was a painting, like that one there, down there. It's more of a painting than an Aboriginal image. It's a painting first. That happens to be dots on it. That's why it's an awkward thing to talk about traditional art and a painting that's hung on a wall. It becomes more personal for the artist. Their own persona gets into it. But that painting, that won it, was called Unity. This is the true image I've got. It had on the left the territory flag, and in the middle was the Australian flag. And there were little small depictions of it. And on the right was the Aboriginal flag. I said, well, I half won that picture, but I fully won becoming. But yeah, it's the image. What's going on? But that copyright stuff wasn't there. It was back in 1984. So yeah. So the point is about being amongst art like this. I've been honest to what I felt at the time was doing landscapes, but that's there. Now I've moved into another arena of art, which is bloody difficult, but I hope the next one would be as good as this one, but I hope it's better, because you've got to improve on the previous one, isn't it? Yeah. But it's going to be a large one. Oh, I won't tell you, it's just, there's a great event in our history here in the Northern Territory I will be depicting. It's just going to be with bodies. I won't say any more. Because someone will whip one up quickly before me.
Thanks very much, Harold. That was
Pleasure.
absolutely fantastic. I had so many more questions to ask you, and I'm sure everyone else did here, but we're really thankful to have you here today and talking in front of Tribal Abduction, the winner of this year's
Is it a
Telstra.
good title?
What's that, mate?
Tribal Abduction, is it?
Yeah, you snuck that in, yeah.
Is it? I want help, you know. I want help.
No,
But it's stuck now, it's stuck.
It's stuck.
Yeah.
It's in the paper.
Yeah.
It must be there. It must be there.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this year's Telstra.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Thanks for that. Was that all right? Oh,